Hello and welcome back to Let's Play RollerCoaster Tycoon 2. This is episode 8, and when we left off I was adding scenery to this magnificent pyramid here. First off, I have to apologize for how long it took to make this video, but as I said in the previous episode, I was on holiday for a week, so that was one reason. But then after the holiday all kinds of things happened that kept me from starting to work on editing this episode. First off, a friend of mine was over visiting for about a week or so I didn't want to waste his time working on this. Instead we did stuff together, of course. And then after that I got Mass Effect 3, which totally sucked me in, both single player and multiplayer, so I played a lot of that. But now I finished the campaign, a single player campaign of that, and decided to finally record this commentary here. So this area is starting to shape up. Got some temples, fountains and gardens set up, and also a sign with the right name, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Had to use two signs because it's so long. Makes me wish there were bigger signs in the game, and also that the number of signs wouldn't be limited. Some of my huge parks I have to remove unnecessary signs to make new ones. There's also a limit to the number of staff that you can have in one park, but that hasn't really been a problem for me. The only times that I had reached the limit, I would just fire some entertainers, because those aren't really necessary to run a good park, while the mechanics, handymen and security guards are pretty essential. Adding some queue lines there to the roller coaster, which already has lots and lots of people queuing up. Maybe some sphinxes here. Nah, they wouldn't fit. Then I've decided to add fences around the statues, which I put on pedestals so they look nicer. This railing type fence is one of my favorites, I use it a lot. Now let's do the same for the fountains as well. Can't have people jumping into them. Maybe hire some security guards to fish out anyone who jumps in. Then I added some gardens in the middle to mix it up, not just fountains the whole row. And then of course we need some staff to patrol the area, clean up the pukes and such. Now let's add some queue-line TVs to the motion simulator. It's a very popular ride, probably because it only fits 8 people at a time, which is kinda unrealistic because all of the motion simulators I've been on were at least 15 people and up to 50 or something, but I guess it depends if the whole thing moves or just the seats. With this one the whole machine moves, so it's smaller than those where only the seats move and such. And now this area needs some benches and stuff, of course. Make it look pretty. Oh, so pretty and witty, and I can't sing at all. Singing reminds me that you probably noticed that I changed the music genre from classic to whatever this is called, chill out music or something like that. Thought it would be nice to have something different for a change. And also editing the classical music was hard sometimes because the volume of volume of it changed a lot during one song, so I had to edit it a lot so it wouldn't be too loud compared to my speech. So now I've set up some coliseums in those large helixes of the mini roller coaster, I mean junior roller coaster, yeah. And now I did some roundhouses in the small helixes, adding some roof there to combine them. And there we have another thing that I miss about RCT1, because I think, if I remember correctly, there was a roof piece that was like a inside angle, or I mean corner, or whatever you call it, that would fit here pretty nicely, but RCT2 doesn't have it, so I have to do something else. Putting some columns there, and then a roof as well. Another thing I wish this game had more of is scenery items that fit perfectly inside large and small helixes. Because right now, for large helixes, you only have the Colosseum and that volcano thing. And for small helixes, you have those round wall things, which I'm using a lot here, trying to do something creative. Made a corner there instead of round one, and then going to add a tower on this one, I think. I'm using those wooden looking wall things with the pointy roof on the top. Now it's time to choose some colors for the coaster, make it look more classical, going with some white and pale red or whatever that is, and some what should I call that, olive green or something. I don't know. And then colors for the trains, going with green on the outside and yellow on the inside. Slightly different green and yellow for each train. This coaster's making a nice profit, almost 9,000 per hour. And now it's time to add some scenery to the splash boats, using the log cabin, open walls, add roofs as well, incorporating both the ride and the queue area into the scenery. In hindsight, I made a couple of bad theming choices in this park. I chose to do this area with a pirate theming, even though there's no pirate scenery available, not even for after researching all the themings. And the same thing happened with the space theming. Decided to make space themed area at the other side of the park, even though there's no space theming available in the scenery options. But I'll just have to improvise something. At least there's the abstract theming, which I can use for the space area. This queue area is getting covered partially, and there we have the hideously ugly looking stall area, which has to change. As soon as I get to live recording, it will. But now I'm covering up the Black Curse of the Black Pearl queue area with some brick walls, and then decided to make mesh fence windows for some reason. Maybe it's to mimic those net walls that you have in the pirate theming. Then a roof, of course, using the brick ones. Now that this building is starting to shape up, I think I'm gonna do some changes to it later on. I don't like how it turned out, but you know, 4 years ago my standards were lower than now. And then going with some black flowers for this area here, putting them in diagonally in every other space, and then white ones in between. Fits nicely with the pirate theme. And then some railings around them with gates as well. I usually use this type of fence for spooky theming and pirate as well. And then it's time to start building the second roller coaster. As I mentioned, it's a mini roller coaster. Building it on this hill area here. Starting off with a small lift hill. Later on there's gonna be another huge lift hill. So it's not gonna be this small. Going underground with some helixes maybe. Later on most of this mountain will be mining themed and Wild West stuff as well. The ride is gonna have sort of time travel theme to it. There's gonna be a cabin thing at the top of the mountain which this coaster goes through. And I also had an epiphany that I should rename the ride to Back to the Future, because in the third movie they go to the Wild West era. So it would fit nicely with the theme. At this point I had my mind set on where I want to build that huge lift hill, but I'm having trouble getting the track to go there. It's gonna take a while before I figure out a good design. In hindsight I should have fast forwarded this part even more. Now it's triple speed, it could have gone for 4 or even 5. Anyways, that thing looks like that hill is too high. I don't think the trains are gonna make it. So now I'm building back to the station to do a test run. See if the trains make it or not. This type of coaster that has only 1 or 2 cars per train is much harder to build than those with full trains, which have a lot more momentum. So the car didn't make it up that hill. Gotta make it smaller. And then figure out how to fit a block break there before the huge lift hill. Gotta lower the land even further to be able to fit the design. And I think it's done. So now another test run just to be sure that the cars make it across that hill. Taking the time to look at some rides. And yes, the test was successful, so now we can actually build the huge lift hill all the way up to the top. Almost. Going underground and then a huge drop. Of course, not too huge because this is a mini roller coaster after all. Not meant to have really huge drops like a giga coaster or something like that. Decided to remove those helixes because I don't like to put them really high up like that. They look ugly. Unless of course you build a huge building underneath or something like that. I also prefer to follow the contours of the landscape. Like in this coaster I built both lift hills on slanted terrain. And now this episode is pretty much over, so I'll see you in the next one where I finish building this coaster.